Why? Hello and welcome everybody. Also good morning. It's that time again. It is time to create the Righteous Fire Chieftain Guide for Path of Exile, Keepers of the Flame 3.27. Now, let's go ahead and jump right on into it. So the gameplay footage you can see here is from a character I was playing till about Maven. It's about 20 hours of or 24 hours of playtime for me on the character. It's an SSF. It does have a little bit of extra gear, but that's for another thing. Just some gameplay footage in the background for you. So, before we get started, if you've never followed one of my builds before, I want to go ahead and show you how it works. We're going to come over to this website. Don't worry, there's no ads on it. It's super simple. You just come to Pohx.net, you click this right here, and you can snag the path of building. Now, before we end it there, I want to plug a few extra things on here because this is all designed to make life easier for you guys. Number one, when you're on the website, on the right here, you have options like my loot filter. Over here on walkthroughs, we have an Act 1 through Act 10 Chieftain walkthrough. I just recently uploaded it yesterday. It goes through the entire campaign, holds your hand, explains everything for you. Probably one of the best resources I can provide. Furthermore, I have moved my written guides over to Mobalytics, so you can just click right on here and you can see the written guide here for Chieftain. I'm still working on things, but it is pretty much up to date, especially for players who don't enjoy using Path of Building. You can see all of the Path of Building loadouts we're going to cover within Mobalytics, so big plus there. Moving on a little bit more forward, we'll have the Chieftain guide right here, and then you can see the latest videos. From here, we have an Atlas page that I've just recently updated that talks about my Atlas strategies and how I progress them. You can simply hit the Go to Planner to go find them right here. You can go ahead and check the crafting page. I've got a little bit of work to do here, but this will basically explain step-by-step crafting along with an FAQ. So if you get stuck at any point in time in the campaign or anywhere, you can just go ahead and use it. For example, maybe you're lacking dexterity, right? Here's a great one. So dexterity, how do I get more dexterity? Bam. Now that we have basically understood that, let's recap. We just come over here. We're going to grab the Righteous Fire Chieftain Leak Start. We're going to yoink that, and then we're going to go ahead and plug it right on in. Now, to do this, you're going to go ahead and make sure you open your Path of Building community, which you can find on the website. If you scroll all the way down at the bottom, you will see links to this. Now, we're just going to go ahead and pause this for now since we're going to be talking about this. Now, once you load this in, don't skip yet. Don't skip. Just a few more seconds. Once you load this in, I have done my absolute best to provide as much visual clarity to the Path of Building as possible. So, let's talk about that. In the Path of Building, in the top right, there's a loadout feature, so you can see the breakdown in the loadouts. When you use a loadout feature, it's going to change the skill tree, it's going to change, well, the skill section, the items, and the tree all at the same time. Furthermore, in the notes section, I know it looks like a lot, we have created a section over here that matches this to your loadout. So maybe you want to understand a little bit more about your level range at 1 to 20, you can read here. Maybe you're on the next breakdown on 21 to 40, you can read this here. Maybe you're on, etc. 61 to 80, and so forth. Now, some other extra info we did is for where people are getting stuck. I've added a little bit more explanation, mainly in this section here, and I'll be expanding on this in the future. But I just figured that this is a really good place to start. Now, before we continue a little bit more on there, I'm going to go ahead and log in so you guys can understand what we're playing with. So that giant ring that you saw, well, it can be giant. Right now it's small. This is the actual Righteous Fire gem. This is one of the big things. I mean, it is literally our gem for leveling, and this is what creates a large amount of our clear. Getting quality on it actually increases the radius, and that's nice because quality means bigger AoE. So that is a very big thing for you. Another thing is our single target of choice. Our single target of choice is Fire Trap, and you can find that right here. It is kind of a weird thing. It doesn't really fit very well, but unfortunately it is our best single target skill, and it comes with a lot of advantages. Like, for example, you don't take reflect damage with it. So that's kind of a big pro for me. Now, moving on forward, let's go ahead and go deeper into the Path of Building so we can understand a little bit more about the build. So, I'm going to bring some attention to the Ascendancy because everyone can kind of look through the loadout feature. So, looking at the Chieftain Ascendancy, let's explain why we take the Chieftain. Number one, Sallow Cleansing Water. Sallow Cleansing Water makes it so modifiers to fire resistance apply to cold and lightning. This means with the build, you are going to stack fire resistance, and it's going to overcap your cold and your lightning. don't really ever have to worry about cold and lightning, you just care about fire and chaos. This pairs really well in conjunction with the Fire Mastery. This Fire Mastery, regenerate 1 life per second for each 1% uncapped fire res, is key for running Righteous Fire. If you actually look over here in the loadouts at 0 to 21 or 1 to 21, you are actually running Righteous Fire in this loadout, meaning by the time you're in Act 2, you can already play Righteous Fire. Now, unfortunately, when it comes to leveling, I do prefer leveling as a caster, which means we are going to be making what's called a mule. We just play on a witch for about 10 minutes. It's not the biggest deal in the world. This is the regex you're going to use for leveling for finding your early equipment. All you have to do is get to Mudflats, click the next zone, and then kill Hail Rake, and you're done with the character. This is really nice because it guarantees you an extra Quicksilver and some extra gear on your Marauder. For players who are more experienced, consider leveling as melee all the way to library, then gambling gear and swapping to RF. Right over here gives you some extra information on this. Okay, let's go ahead and go back to the next part of the tree and explain the rest of the Ascendancy nodes. So, moving on a little bit further, we are going to go ahead and take Ramako Sun's Light. If you want to follow my progression instead of the POB, I like to take Hinokora Death's Fury. There's explanations in the notes for that as well. Now, the next lap after that, we're going to take it anyway, but just to explain the differences. Ramako Sun's Light states when you are standing still, mobs have minus 20 fire res. Specifically, they are at minus 20 fire resistance while standing still. This is so important to the Chieftain node for mapping. When you're running maps with elemental resistance, a mob has bonus fire res, and they have 100 fire res, you would normally need to Flammability, Elemental Weakness, apply Exposure, hit them with Scorch, apply your Combustion to strip the res. With Chieftain, you simply stand still. And for people who are thinking, standing still doesn't really look very enticing to me, if you saw the gameplay footage from earlier, you don't actually need to fully stand still. When you are mapping in a scenario like this, sometimes all you have to do is trigger standing still by, for example, casting a spell like Punishment, which is our curse. By casting that spell, you're stationary for the duration of the cast time, which would be like 0.5 of a second, and often that's enough to trigger your Hinokora, which we're going to get into next. Hinokora, the Ascendancy that we're talking about, is right over here in the Path of Building. Hinokora is the next thing that I like to take, or in this instance, I take Hinokora and then Ramaka. If you saw those giant explosions that were happening, that is the result of this node. A lot of players ask, how can I make this proc more frequently? And the answer to this is, you technically can't, but you can put more monsters in your maps in the endgame. This is going to allow you to have a wonderful experience because the more monsters, the more loot, the more explosions, the faster you level, and it kind of just keeps spiraling. Now, one of the other big things about Righteous Fire is maintaining your maximum resistance. So, because of this, over here in this loadout, as we go further, we ascend and we take Volako Storm's Embrace. What this does is it makes it so your cold and lightning can basically are equivalent to your maximum fire. So not only do you stack fire res, you also stack maximum fire res to cap your cold and lightning. This is one of the big reasons why I really enjoy Chieftain for this. The higher your maximum elemental res, the less damage you take from the Righteous Fire. Since we're talking about this loadout here, let's go ahead and jump into the 90 going block based. Now the 90 going block based is a loadout kind of designed where I don't want to say the casual players kind of end. It's really hard to put myself in the position of someone who is less experienced, right? But this is a loadout designed for basically being able to achieve your Void Stones. If you're a very good player, you can get your Void Stones in just life res gear, but for players who struggle, consider going into the going block based. This is a big pivot, and this is where new players can mess up, so remember, as explained earlier, be sure to read the 61 to 90 here, the 90 going block base to understand. This also goes in tandem with my website where you can learn to craft that gear. But let's not stick there. Let's go on. So, over here we have a little pros and cons. Now to just explain the pros and cons really fast, Righteous Fire has very fast map clear on a budget. You just need your Ignite Proliferation. Ignite Proliferation is typically found in 2 sources. For the sake of clarity and simplicity in the POB, I have narrowed it down to 1. On your gloves, you can craft with Eldritch Embers, those little red things that drop in the tier 14 plus maps, ignites you, inflict spread to other enemies. That makes it so your Hinokora that does that big explosion rolls your ignite chance, which you can find here. So for instance, for me, it's 44%. That's individual per monster. So if your explosion hits 17 monsters, Each one is rolling a 44% chance. That explosion does more damage than your Righteous Fire, your Fire Trap combined, hitting for 10 seconds. It's ridiculous. RF doesn't hit, by the way. Anyway, though, moving on. Very tanky, 90 max res, block cap with recovery. We use Glancing Blows. 40% physical damage taken as fire from Cloak of Flame. This makes it so we don't need to scale armor. We can simply take physical damage, convert a large amount of it to fire, which is now rolling against 90%. 5+ endurance charges for physical elemental mitigation and big life regen. Limited on button presses. Ignores all ice and light or cold and lightning res via stacking fire res. Some of the cons. It doesn't have the best single target. Average player stops at around 2 to 4 million. So for people who want a boss farm, it's not the best build for that. It can do it, it's just not fast. Slow Act 1 plus Mule due to getting Righteous Fire in Act 2. As explained earlier, if you'd like, you can try leveling as melee. Limited scaling, other builds scale better, however RF can do all content if you gear for it. I never recommend the build for Ubers. Ubers are a bit out of the question. It can kill them, but it's not recommended for them. Also takes time to scale into tier 17 maps, 30+ divines, or if you're experienced and you understand, Hateful Accuser is a much cheaper alternative to get into that. I don't have this in the POB because people get very confused and mess it up. This is one of those builds where you need to set it up correctly. You're not really allowed to deviate. Okay, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into a little bit more gameplay. So, I'm going to exit from here and log into a low-level character to explain the leveling process. Here is a character who is still in Act 1, and I'm going to show an example of how you play it. You can see the gear is very bare bone. We don't have anything special. It is just a very simple character running a 3-link Rolling Magma, Elemental Proliferation, and Combustion. A lot of people hate Rolling Magma. I'm going to try to explain to you how simple it is. All you need to do is run ahead of the mobs, like so. When there's a big pack of monsters, so surely here we go. All we're going to do is we're going to drop a flame wall. We're going to shoot that in, and we're going to move on, and you can see the XP go up, right? So let's do it again. Flame wall, Rolling Magma in, and move on. You don't have to kill every monster. If you want to, you can. By doing this, you're creating what's known as Ignite Proliferation whenever you roll Ignite Chance. Ignite Proliferation creates those circles on the floor, which allows you to just do lingering, essentially lingering damage, right, as you're running. So here's a blue pack. Here will be a great example. You can see there how they're taking that damage, right? That's the Ignite Proliferation. So you just simply do this, and you will level no problem, right? For bossing, it's advisable to bring 2 Mana Flasks, and make sure you actually upgrade your Mana Flask. You don't want to be running around with a small one. Thankfully, we do run Righteous Fire in Act 2, around level 20, maybe 18, so you don't have to do this too long. Speaking of running Righteous Fire, I'm going to go ahead and log into one of my higher level characters that we showed at the beginning, but before we get started, I want to just go ahead and highlight. When you get into the Act 2, you want to make sure you go right first so you can do Chamber of Sins. After killing Fidelitis in Chamber of Sins, you can come over here, turn the quest into Silk, and then after you talk to Yina, she will sell you a Righteous Fire gem you can find right here for 1 alteration. From there, you want to make sure you get the Fire Mastery as explained and follow through the POB. This will make it so killing Oak in the wetlands is a breeze. Speaking of killing Oak, I personally kill Oak, and I kill Alira, and I help Creighton so I can get that bonus movement speed. To me, that's like kind of nice, right? Also, I want to talk about a couple of league mechanics that Righteous Fire is good at. Some of the ones that it would be good at would be the following: Blight, Ritual, Early Delving, Heist, Harvest, Delirium with any form of Alch and Go as long as you're not doing something crazy, Strong Boxes, and Altar Rushing, which happens to be like Tier 16, Exarch Altar, etc. Eater Altar. RF Chieftain works very well for altars because the fire res doesn't do anything to you, which is actually very nice. It's like a free mod. Essentially, any mechanic that spawns a lot of monsters, you can just kill them, right? So this character right here, I'm going to flash the gear. It's not that crazy. I would say this is weaker than the character in the 90 POB gear set that players should aim towards. This character is not running anything fancy on the tree. It's just a simple cluster jewel with Burning Bright. I've just got some regular jewels. It's quite literally my SSF character. I just gave it the Cloak of Flame from my other character. Now I'm going to go ahead and jump into a tier 16 so you can understand the low single target damage I'm referring to. For context here, because I know people will ask, this character is currently running 300k on RF and my fire trap is 400k. So nothing too crazy. Now, as you're playing through, you have a little bit of a rotation if you care. What I like to do is throw as little fire traps as possible. So because of this, what I like to do instead is I like to use my punishment first before I throw a fire trap. So I just simply punishment first, and then I just keep RFing. If the targets aren't dead, that's when I throw. So like here, I'll throw a fire trap at them. But I don't even need to, because I could just drag them into future mobs, just like this. I see a lot of players who don't really enjoy the build, and I think a lot of the time it's because, unfortunately, it's not that they're playing it incorrectly, it's that they don't really understand that you could play very aggressive with this build if you choose to. Now, this character, being as it is an SSF character, does not have the best gear. Primarily, I don't have big life regeneration on my gloves or my boots. This is a prime stat for Righteous Fire and provides so much recovery in the form of life regeneration. And this is because we stack a lot of flat life regeneration, and we want to scale that with a multiplier such as life regenerate. This character is only running 1100 life regen. By this point, I would usually have 500. Sorry, like 1.5k. So when I come across the boss here, we are going to look a little bit squishier than I normally would be. I'm going to just turn off that shrine. Here's an example of a Guardian in the early game. You want to Enduring Cry at the beginning for endurance charges. Now we're basically going to just dodge the big hits with Frostblink, so you can see me dodging like this. If you're tanky enough, it doesn't really matter. This is our damage with no Hinokora explosions, just simply throwing fire traps. Now that the target is in 50%, he is officially in our punishment range, which means we do bonus damage. Punishment only activates when the target is sub 50% life. That is also why in the Path of Building you will see a configuration that has reduced punishment effect. That is because punishment tags when the target's at 100% in POB, and we're not trying to inflate numbers on the character. Now, other than that, I'm going to go ahead and rapid fire just a few more questions. As for Bloodlines, unfortunately, I don't think there's anything super good right away. There was the latest one that was teased that has like less fire damage taken if you're using a specific graft, less physical, and 8% life. That one seems okay, but it's really hard for us to give up Ramako Sun's Light, which kind of like makes everything go together. It's very good for mapping, but not good for bossing. That would be the one that we drop. Other than that, there were grafts that were shown, the ones that stick into your back. There are some really nice ones there. One of them I saw makes it so every time you attack, you trigger a hit that covers an ash, which is pretty cool. At first I was concerned because of accuracy, but it seems like we don't have to worry about accuracy, it just triggers whenever you hit. So as we're shield charging through maps, we're going to get a nice juicy damage buff, somewhere around 10-15%, because our shield charge will trigger the graft, which is covering targets in ash. Then, that's pretty much about it. I'll be streaming this build on day one, so you can tune into the stream if you want to know more about it. I'd say one other confusing part for players maybe is the 6 life mastery. A lot of people look at the build and they say, why are you taking masteries that aren't good for you? Like, for example, the low life one or the full life one. And the reasoning for this is scaling our health on the life mastery here. So for example, when I respec it, you're going to notice I drop a lot of HP. This is due to this life mastery right here. This allows us to scale a lot of HP somewhat efficiently on a budget. It's not always used throughout the whole entire character, but it is pretty nice. The reason we prioritize HP are 2 reasons. Number 1, Righteous Fire actually scales off of your maximum life. More life is more base damage. Number 2, having a very high life pool works very well in conjunction with Shaper life gain on block when you're recovering 5% of your life on block. Combining these 2 forces makes it so your character can feel immortal in around like tier 16 content. Trying to break into tier 17 content definitely needs some better defensive layers, but this gets your character started. The last thing I kind of want to talk about is the fire resistance stacking, because this is another area where a lot of new players make the mistake. In my build guide, I talk a lot about stacking fire resistance to help cover your cold and lightning. Whereas this is true, around the end of the campaign, I recommend gambling some gear so you can get some baseline gear that also has life on it. Fire resistance stacking is good, but you also cannot neglect your other stats, such as life, dexterity, life regenerate we were talking about, chaos resistance, a lot of other stats. And then the absolute last thing, since we keep rambling, would be going back to the initial Path of Building and just looking at this beginning part here for players who are a little bit slower or they want a little bit more help. When I say slower, I mean because unique items come down in price really fast. You can see some desired unique items for leveling located right over here. Anyway, that's pretty much about it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys liked it. If you did, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget, if you want to catch me streaming live, I'm live every day at twitch.tv/Pohx. And if you guys have any tips regarding the formatting of the build, please feel free to drop them down below, because I kind of wing this stuff. I'm trying to get a little better with the organization. Take care, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys all tomorrow.